There we go. So now we're recording so that you can come back and look at this presentation on our website or on our Facebook page if you would like as well. And today I am just thrilled that we were able to get Albemarle County Executive Jeff Richardson to join us today to provide some information about the county, kind of give a bit of a state of the county address. And I did ask him to focus a little bit on economic development issues and COVID recovery efforts for the business community. So Jeff has been with, oops, we were just talking about this. Jeff has been with the county now, I think for 4 years. Is that right? 2017. And comes here with a long track record of experience in both city and county management in cities in North Carolina and counties in North Carolina. And Emily Kilroy is also here from Albemarle County, and she will be assisting with slides today. And so there will be ample time at the end of the conversation for some question and answers from you all. So I think with that, I think I'm going to ask Emily to share her screen, and we'll turn things over to Jeff.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for what I think is a wonderful opportunity for me to be in the community today, albeit virtual. We're now approaching 1 year, and so this has become a little bit of our new normal. I do want to take a second to thank those who are in attendance today. Thank you for your time. I've got, I think, about 25 minutes of prepared comments, and this is the first time I've done this particular presentation. I'll try to be mindful of my time. I want to take a couple of seconds to extend the introduction of Emily Kilroy. Emily is with Albemarle County, and she is the director of our Community and Public Engagement division that is attached under the county executive's office. And so she is the community outreach piece. She's our direct connection to the media. And in a lot of cases, she's direct connection to our community. Emily's been with the organization for much longer than I have and worked in community and public engagement for several years, and was most notably connected to the community development department and worked a lot with community meetings and community outreach. The position she now holds was vacant whenever I came to work for the county, and I did some restructuring, and we eventually promoted Emily into this position, and very proud of the work that she does. And she's been a key part of our incident management team structure during our relief efforts with the coronavirus work that we've done over the past year. And so in addition to helping me to stay consistent with the slides, when we get to the question and answer session, and you guys, if you have questions, it may be that Emily has insight and something to say in addition to myself, and I'll invite Emily to be a part of that conversation. Thank you very much. Elizabeth, thank you for being here, and I'll go ahead and get started. So if you would advance, to the agenda. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our county government, and I'll be brief, and then I'm going to move through a little bit of the COVID-19 response and reconstitution, and that also I hope will be brief, and then we'll give this group a little bit of an inside look at our local economic outlook, our strategic plan investments, and then I'm going to work hard to try to save time for questions and answer for the people that are here. Okay. I want to talk for a second about Albemarle County's mission. We have mission moments in our organization where we're working with our leadership structure, and we then will go from our leadership team meetings to town hall meetings. One of the things that's different about how we are operating in this environment is over the past year, we've started holding and conducting town hall meetings with our county staff, and we do these every 2 weeks. We have about 10 people probably that help to anchor these meetings. They're Zoom meetings with all of our county government. We have about 700 to 750 full-time staff that occupy the departments across county government. And on any given town hall meeting, we will have between 200 and 300 employees who will sign in. It's typically from 11 until 12 o'clock, and we talk about current issues in county government. But we have began to talk about our mission moment and to remind all of our staff why we're here. And so our mission as county government is to enhance the well-being and quality of life for all community members through the provision of the highest level of public service, and that's consistent with the prudent use of public money. So we're here to keep an eye on the well-being and quality of life of every community member in Albemarle County, and we're trying to provide high levels of public service, and we're doing that consistent, recognizing that this is public money. So I wanted to say that out loud. I think it's important that we say out loud, why are you here? What is your existence about? So the slide you have in front of you is a slide that I teach off of at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in their School of Government. And I get the opportunity to go down at least 2 times a year to be with students and practicing professionals. And we talk about the life of a county manager, a city manager. And these are 4 balls that I put in the air. And these 4 balls are the elected board, the key partner agencies, the community we serve, and the 4th ball is our organization. And so I'll talk about that just a little bit today, about how our county government operates. So if you were to spend a week with me and say, I want to spend a week with you and I want to learn a little bit more about what you do, I'd share with you this slide and I'll say, these are the 4 balls that a county manager's got to keep in front of him to some degree with the help of a lot of people. So let's go back to Emily and her role as CAPE director. Emily keeps her eye on the community ball at all times. She's watching what's going on with our community. She has a hand on the pulse regarding our community. And that helps me and others greatly as it relates to everything that we do on a day-to-day basis. Never hoping to lose the community perspective. How does this affect the community we serve? Okay. You'd advance, thank you. So this is the county executive form of government. This is the current board of supervisors who I report to on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, there's a couple of things I'd say about this. These are the people who are elected by the Albemarle County citizens to represent Albemarle County government, and it is on a district basis. This is the first time in my career, and I'm approaching 30 years, it's the first time in my career that I have served a board that was district elected, district represented. In my career, I've always represented a board that was elected at large and served the entire city or this entire county. So that's been a learning opportunity for me in the 3+ years that I've been here. We've had several districts that have turned over since I've been here. So I've got several members here who were on the board that originally hired me when I was asked to come to Albemarle County in 2017. And then several new members who have come on. Half the board is up for re-election every 2 years. That's called staggered terms, as opposed to all 6 seats being open at one time. These are 4-year appointments. And so you have 3 open up every 2 years. And the reason for that with our form of government and with that framework is to assure continuity on the board over a 4-year period. This board and myself were obligated through a common bond to make local government work for the good of the citizens of our community. Okay, so if you'd advance the slide. How do we do that? Citizens usually judge local government officials on how we meet that obligation of making local government work for citizens, really in 3 ways. 3 ways. So what I'm trying to say to you as a group who may be interested in county government today is, how do citizens typically judge how you're doing? First, they look at the community's economic vitality. How strong is our local economy? How much vitality do we have in our local economy? And they'll look at local government, city or county, and they'll say, what's your role in that? And number 2, the citizens' quality of life. That's kind of straightforward and something I think that people would pick up on pretty quick. But what the trick is there is that if you ask 10 people what's important about their quality of life, you're going to get probably 7 or 8 variations of answers. And so it's really up to the citizen to be able to say, here's what's important to me regarding my quality of life. And then third is the responsiveness to the citizen's needs. And over the past year, what I would say is that we've been challenged in all three of these areas, because it goes without saying that due to the year-long pandemic, has our community's economic vitality been affected? It absolutely has. And many of you could tell a lot of stories that tie directly in with how's our economy different from a year ago. Have citizens' quality of life been affected in a dramatic way? It absolutely has. And then number three, has local government been challenged in its responsiveness to the citizens' needs? We have, and what I'm proud of is I believe that Albemarle County has responded in a fairly favorable and effective way in being able to respond to our citizens' needs. Okay. So I talk a minute about our COVID-19 response and reconstitution. We went into an emergency order March the 12th of last year. We're approaching 1 year of being in a continual state of emergency. I would respectfully remind everybody that's on the call today, we are under a county state of emergency. We are under a state order of emergency and a national order of emergency. We're approaching 1 year. Prior to this event, my longest state of emergency that I'd ever worked in was 18 days. And for most local government managers, it's typically not longer than that unless you are a beach community or an inland community that is hit with hurricane, tornado, and the flooding that goes along with that in beach communities where you have significant damage and you have significant rebuild. But we have been under this since March of 20. And we basically, once we realized what we had to rebuild local government service delivery in a lot of ways. We've been focused really on two fronts: continuing to reduce the spread of the virus through a lot of local policy work and operational work. And then we've also had to pivot recently and focus on vaccine administration and what we can do to influence, collaborate, and help our local health officials with getting shots in the arms. I'll tell you one quick story on this. It occurred both last July and last December, but last December we were challenged with tax collections with trying to administer in-person services to our citizens that feel compelled to drive to our county facility to pay their taxes in person. Over a 3-year period, we had between 1,000 and 2,000 citizens that drove, community members that drove to our offices to pay their taxes. There's about 6 different ways that you can pay your taxes without having to come downtown to our downtown location. And we were able to handle 93% of our citizens who drove up for services in our building out on the front apron, the front porch. It was under tents and it was in an outside setting. We set our services up there, out there so that citizens would not have to come in our building, which heightens the degree of risk with COVID transmission. And it also helped our employees with lowering their degree of risk as well. So we handled about 93% of customers that came to the county for services during tax collections. The remaining 7% had issues and problems that did require them to come in the building. So that's an example of us pivoting and re-establishing our service delivery model. Okay. So we received through the federal government approximately $19 million of CARES coronavirus relief money. That is no local money. There is no local tax dollars involved in that $19 million figure. And it's a use it or lose it. And that deadline was December 31st. So it may sound weird for me to say that that was a challenge, but when we pulled that money down from the feds through the state to our local government last year in 2020, we had quite a challenge, and it was quite a Herculean effort to follow all of the laws and requirements associated with the federal money, meet all of the obligations with reporting requirements, and then expend that money by December the 31st. We received it in 2 payments, and it did total $19 million. It was allocated by the state to our localities, and it was allocated on a population basis. Our goal was to move the money to support areas of the community that's most impacted by the pandemic. $9 million went to support direct expenses incurred by our local government, and nearly 10 million went straight out the door to the community to support individuals, households, and businesses to get through last year. Okay. So let's now move to the ball, which is key partner agencies. And I just want to say a couple of things that over the past year, we've worked more with the Blue Ridge Health District than maybe if you were to go back 20 years and say, how much time does local government, our county government, have working with the Blue Ridge Health District? They've always been a key partner agency in our community, but in the last year, that all changed. And so our key partner agencies in trying to help to hold down the transmission of the virus, to manage our caseloads and then move into vaccine administration. We've worked daily with the Blue Ridge Health District. And I just can't say enough about the men and women that work for our Blue Ridge Health District. They're an amazing group of people, but also our key partnerships have included the city, UVA, our United Way agencies as it relates to COVID relief. And I'll say a little something about our partnership with the chamber later, but they've also been a key partner agency as well. Okay. As it relates to speak a little bit more about the vaccine process in Virginia, the Vaccines Administration is the responsibility of the State Department of Health. They're managing that through the health districts, and that pulls into our partnership with the Blue Ridge Health District. They're leading the effort for all the counties that they serve, and they serve Albemarle, Greene, Nelson, Fluvanna, and Louisa. They also serve the city of Charlottesville. As a local government, what we've done is we've tried to partner hard with the city through our regional 911 call center to ensure that logistics and resource needs are being met. Now, the only barrier really that's remaining is the vaccine supply. And that's largely where we find ourselves today at this moment. We've got structure in place through our partnerships with the city, UVA, and UVA has been an unbelievable partner throughout this process. And so really, there's been great partnership from the two major health systems to help catch all of the remaining 1A frontline healthcare workers, both Martha Jefferson Centera and the University of Virginia Healthcare System. Now we have CVS and Walgreens working to vaccinate staff and residents at long-term care facilities as well. We just need more vaccine. And if you watch the national news, that's one of the topics that we hear about every night. I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to talk a little bit about our local economic outlook. February is really the start of the intense work that we go through regarding our next year's fiscal year budget process. And that's with our board and with our internal departments and with our community. This is a slide that really encapsulates our annual budget, and it reflects our strategic priorities balanced against affordability. Where our resources are available, these 9 priorities are identified by our board and they guide the budget development process. You noticed I said affordability. I use that word a lot, and I've used that word over the last several budget processes a lot because our boards are connected well to our community. Our boards they're elected to make things better. They're elected to make things happen. They're elected to make decisions. But I routinely tell our board that we can do anything you want. We can't do everything you want. Therein lies the trick of being an elected official at the local government level, is that you have to prioritize. And we do. You see our strategic priorities in front of you. We will run out of money before we run out of needs and good ideas. We will run out of money before we run out of opportunities that we may come before us. And so we have a strategy in how we move forward. And these strategic priorities are before us now. We will be talking about the board about these strategic priorities and how we can try to move money into these areas in order to make the biggest difference for the well-being of our citizens and community members that we serve. The first thing I'd say, though, before I leave that, I do want to make one point. If we could just go back 1 second, Emily. I want to point out that 61, and I guess now it's 59 cents of every dollar is devoted to education in this community, and that's school operations, capital projects, and debt. And so we have a very strong public school system in this community that is renowned across the state and in some regard across the country. And this community is very committed to public education in a big way. Okay. I want to talk about our unemployment rate. The folks that are on this call, you know a lot about this data. You may track it more closely than I do, but it's been an extremely volatile year for our local economy. When this pandemic hit last March, we developed a 3-6-6 approach to balancing our budget. The 3 had to do with the remaining 3 months that we were in our current budget year, because when this hit in March, local government runs on a July 1st to June 30th budget year. So we were approaching the last 3 months of our budget year. And we really slammed on the brakes with spending. We slammed on the brakes with hiring. We instituted an immediate position freeze. And then we stripped out all employee compensation consideration, additional compensation consideration for the year that we're in currently. We made other adjustments to our budget in order to be able to come in under budget for last year, the last quarter. And then we also made some significant adjustments going into this year. The 3 had to do with the last 3 months of last fiscal year. The 6 and the 6 was really taking the current year that we're in and dividing it into 2 6-month segments. And the reason that we did that was because we wanted to really take a 15-month process and divide it into 3 steps to be able to say, let's be cautious with how we move through the next 15 months, not knowing what we didn't know. We knew that we were in a national pandemic, but we didn't know what the long-term lingering effects were going to be on our economy. So you can see the chart in front of you. It shows the unemployment rate with pre-pandemic unemployment being between 2 and 2.5%, and then quickly peaking to 9% in April. And then over the period of time from April to now, it's eased back down to 3.6% as of November. This is higher than we normally have in our community for the past several years. Okay. So the forecasted unemployment rate, this is work that was done, that was provided by our economic analysts that we have in our community development department. Forecasting shows continued slow recovery with unemployment. It's important to note that an unemployment rate only includes individuals who are actively seeking employment in our labor force. We expect that as the labor market continues to improve, more people who have left the labor market will hopefully return. So these are just some general statistics that we put in our board, before our board earlier back in January. So the unemployment and jobs are related, but they're distinct. You can see that there's been a large contradiction in the number of local jobs during the pandemic, dropping by 10% from March until the end of June. So I want you to really, and this group knows this without me saying it, but the most heavily impacted job sectors between the fourth quarter of 19 and the fourth quarter of 20 are accommodation and food services, which we lost almost 2,000 jobs in this community. Arts, entertainment, and recreation was another 1,000 jobs. And then finally, retail trade. The job losses in these 3 sectors accounted for 65% of the job loss, private sector job loss in the market. Okay. Job numbers are estimated to have improved since the quarter ended of June of 2020. We're expecting to see a modest and steady increase in jobs as we hope to see our economy continue to stabilize. So in summary, regarding our economy, is that I put a little bit of information out in front of jobs and unemployment. And we're seeing positive economic indicators that our local economy appears to be stabilizing. And it's been a difficult year in our local economy, especially in the hospitality and tourism sectors. We're seeing some stabilization locally, and I hope that we'll continue to see positive indicators for modest expansion from where we are today. So I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about Albemarle County's revenue outlook. This chart from last year is really to illustrate for you where the majority of our revenues come from. And you can see the green part of the donut, and the green part of the donut is our general property taxes. So we have a strong reliance on our general property taxes. And that's both real estate and personal property. We just put this data in front of our board within the last 2 weeks. Okay. So let's take a look really quick at real estate. And some of you may have seen this already, where the real estate assessments are up by 1.4% this year. It is a much more modest growth figure than any of the years preceding this year, all the way back to when this community climbed out of the national recession, and that would have been between 2013 and 2014. So overall, we're seeing real estate assessment go up 1.4% over last year. We pull a layer back and look at that more closely. You can see where the growth is occurring, and that is in the residential side. And then you can see where we're hurting the most in this community, which commercial properties as a whole, they're down 5.5%. Okay. We take that layer and peel it back even further, the commercial property changes by type. You can see where we're hurt the most in this community is with hotels and shopping centers. They're valued differently than some of the other property classification types. It's a combination of income produced, but it's also taking in risk factors. And so there's been lower revenues and there's been higher risk associated with both hotel and shopping centers over the past year. And you see a pretty significant drop in property assessment. I'll also point out that of our entire real estate market assessment, 85 in Albemarle County, 85% of our base is residential and 15% of our base is commercial. So with our stronger than maybe expected residential market, that created a little bit more of a lift for us overall with a 1.4% growth number. Okay. I'm proud that despite the pandemic, we were able to continue to make some strategic investments in priority areas that have been set forth by our Board of Supervisors. And when we talk about strategic plan investments, really what we're talking about is what are the most significant opportunities do we have to make investments to improve the well-being of the community. And so with that, if you'd forward that. Broadband. And I understand from Elizabeth that Mike Culp, who is our key staff support for broadband in the Albemarle County community, I believe he came, Elizabeth, and spoke several months ago with this group. Our approach to broadband is to form partnerships with our local service providers to expand infrastructure. And over the past several years, we've leveraged $1 million in local funding, and we've been able to bring in $8 million of state and private money, adding access to 3,700 locations. We use the CARES money to invest an additional $1 million to get access to an additional 2,000 locations. So this work that I'm talking about is primarily managed through the Albemarle Broadband Authority. I will tell this group that we are coming to the board with my budget on February the 24th, and we'll be recommending a fairly significant amount of additional capital investment in broadband. And we will also be making recommendations to bolster the operations side of the house with some staffing that would be devoted directly to broadband, and that's both for the urban and the rural areas. So, so that's just something I wanted this group to be aware of. Okay. Our economic development work continues in Albemarle County. Roger Johnson is our Director of Economic Development, and I know that he works very closely with Elizabeth Cromwell and her team. Roger, Jennifer, and JT, they make up our Economic Development Office, and they've done really good work over the past year. It's really focused in 3 areas, and that is business support, where we put capital in the hands of our local small businesses during the height of the pandemic. Strategic investments, which is the part of the work that Roger and JT and Jennifer were doing prior to the pandemic. And what we're doing is we're using our local economic development tools, and we're investing in job creation and public amenities. And without us and without our investment and participation, these projects would not happen in Albemarle County. And then finally, a regional collaboration, and that's where we're working with the city, and we are working with the university, the foundation, our business partners that allow us to support vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystems and business retention efforts, as well as expansion. So I know the chamber has been key to Project Rebound. I said earlier, they were a key strategic partner, and they really are. Elizabeth and her team have really, the word collaborate is the first word that comes to mind whenever I think of the chamber, and Elizabeth and the team of people that we have working with them on a day-to-day basis. So both Project Rebound and the venture capital stuff. And Elizabeth, I know you fully well know that stuff because you've been working hard.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm almost finished, and then we'll turn it over to questions from the group. I want to talk for a minute about some of the other key priorities that the county has identified. One is climate action. We adopted a community-wide greenhouse gas emissions reduction goal of 45% by 2030 and 0 by 2050. We've adopted a climate action plan, and phase one in that plan was adopted in October of 2020. Phase two is implementation process, and that is getting underway as we speak. Transportation. That's probably, if you were to ask me the question, what type of citizen complaint do you get the most of on a day-to-day basis? It would be the concerns that are identified by our citizens related to their challenges with traffic and transportation needs. And so we get a steady number of complaints about traffic congestion, the lack of transportation infrastructure in our community. So our transportation leveraging program is key. It's an annual investment of local money to attract state dollars. And we've got 10 projects that have been evaluated from the state. 9 of the 10 we will be successful in pulling down state money. It's about $80 million of state money that's coming to our community, and that requires a local investment of $7 million. And so Kevin McDermott is one of our key transportation planners for the county. He would be a good speaker to come back to this group in the future and talk about what those key projects are and how they're going to improve the transportation, overall transportation infrastructure in our community. I'm excited about that. We've been really aggressive. Our board stepped that up about 18 months ago and said, we've got to make some of these projects happen. All right. Land use and community amenities. This is a really busy slide, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but it's basically looking at the quality of life in our community. Several large projects to lay the planning foundation in major policy areas. Our comprehensive plan is going to get an update process. That's before our board tomorrow, February the 3rd. We're wrapping up our housing policy and a study focused on improving mobility for everyone in that Rio Road corridor. We've made investments to transform the Southwood mobile home community. We're bringing the Biscuit Run Park online over the next few years. That's a park that we basically took over from the state. A huge piece of property, and that could be one of the more magnificent parks anywhere in this region. We're addressing school capacity needs in Crozet, strategic sidewalk investments, and that's the school stuff is not just Crozet, but Scottsville, Red Hill Elementary School. And we're also continuing to try to make investments in some of our urban infrastructure, rainways and roadways. The next 2 slides really are a wrap up of our 2020 year, where we saw 2 million people visit our parks. And this is a lot of Emily's work with her team, and that is 13,000 followers on social media. 500,000 people have visited our albemarle.org website. Over 400 newsletters and press releases. And we, in 2020, we oversaw and managed 255 virtual public meetings. We turned that around pretty quick. Whenever we were hit in the stomach with the pandemic, we turned around and we said, we got to be virtual. We got to be virtual pretty quick. And we got our meetings up and running. We had about a 30-day lag, and then we started doing the big public hearings, and we've never looked back. Public safety is near and dear to my heart, and that includes our social services department, police, fire, and rescue staff, and they've not let up in the past year. They've managed day-to-day operations, and they've also managed the pandemic. They're frontline in our community, and they've supported our citizens and community members through some pretty difficult times. We continue to try to move the community forward. One of the things that we realized in the last 6 months is that this feels like a permanent crisis. This feels like that that we're basically managing our emergency as a part of our new reality. At least local government is approaching it that way. So we continue. In 2020, we invested in $54 million in capital projects. We conducted 42,000 inspections in our community. And we got some pretty positive feedback for how our inspections department turned on a dime and continued to move that segment of the community forward. Because as you know, when the pandemic hit, we had a really hot housing market here. And so our workloads were really high, and they continue to be. And then finally, almost 800 interactions with county businesses. So I'm really proud of our team. In closing, I would remind this group that we're a workforce, we're an organization, we're a business just like you are. And I've had to pay close attention to our workforce stabilization efforts. Just some interesting data out of our full-time staff, 50% of my workforce have kids under the age of 18. Why that's important is because these kids are trying to figure out what public school is like. And over the last year, it's been a combination of virtual and in person. And it's been very stressful on our families. Another key partner for us has been the YMCA. We set up with the YMCA some after-school programs, childcare, daycare stuff, and they really stepped up, and we worked with them over the last year to try to help our employees in a meaningful way. We've had to deal with budget constraints, frozen positions. I froze about 5% of our positions in the county government. It's between 20 and 30 positions. And that's increased stress. Our employee assistance program usage is up 100% over the last year. So we have families that have gone through a lot. We have a lot of workers just like you do who are dual family income families, and we have spouses who've lost their jobs or have had their hours cut. A third of our workforce is COVID frontline, and so we've had to continue to deal with that and work through that both on a work front and on a family front. Our workforce is amazing. They're hardworking people just like you are and just like the workforce that you have in your organization. We are trying to build our resiliency. We're trying to build our toughness so that we can serve the citizens of this community and continue to earn your trust and confidence. So with that, Elizabeth, that wraps me up, and I'm ready for the hard questions, and I'll do my best to answer. I saw a couple of chat questions, but I said we'll stack those and let's talk about that after we read. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for a very informative and thoughtful presentation. We do have lots of questions coming in on lots of different channels. So I think maybe if I could, I'll just go ahead and convey one of those questions right off the bat. When does the county hiring freeze negatively impact service delivery? For example, community development is currently down 7 full-time employees, it looks like.
Right. It has affected service delivery in some areas where it's slowed us down. It's stacked us up in some cases. Our community development director, Jody Filardo, she's been with us just over a year. She was an outstanding addition to our team. Jody's keeping a really close eye on that, as is one of our deputy county executives, Doug Walker. We're continuing to evaluate. They asked for some things in the budget to include some minor restructuring. And so we're going to have to give them some help. because that's one of the pinch points in our organization is our community development department. They get hammered on a day-to-day basis with a lot of activity, and our citizens expect us to be responsive and to move things through. And so we're going to have to give that. That's probably one of the top areas that I'm looking at in the budget process to try to see what I can do with the resources that we've got.
Great. There's another question about whether, as a result of COVID and all the changes, that you have perhaps captured new efficiencies or changed the way that you do things forever. Are there some things that have turned out to be better than the way they were done before?
When I introduced Emily earlier, I really boasted about what her talent level is. And so I'll take a second to think, but Emily, do you have an example of where we've eyeballed efficiencies? If you could be thinking about that, I'd love for you to come up with a really good example. Here's one of the things that I would say off the top. Our social services department is a huge department, 160, 170 staff. We only have 10 people working in the facility over on Fifth Street on a day-to-day basis. Over 90% of the staff are now operating out of their homes, and then they're going in the field from their homes, or they're going to clients' homes and then coming back. So working from home or splitting time and coming in the office and working from home, if that's managed appropriately, you can save a significant amount of time on a day-to-day basis. And it's a win for the employer, it's a win for the employee, and you can monitor your efficiency, the work performance, the output. And that's something that local government probably wasn't very good at before the pandemic hit, was being able to blend a workforce and allow some people to base from home, some people to base out of the office. We were looking at expanding our footprint in terms of the square footage that we needed. Elizabeth, I'll be frank with you and tell you that we had outgrown our space. And this pandemic has forced us to totally rethink that, to realize that, number one, we had a lot of wasted space, underutilized space, and that if we work with our employees to create a more friendly model of how you get your job done, that we can save the taxpayers' dollars, we can better utilize our space, and it doesn't affect service delivery in any way. So that's just a couple of things that I would say. Emily may have a better example. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Emily.
Not at all. Thank you. There's two areas that I would really highlight. One is sort of getting back to in March when we closed the county office buildings to the public. We were not set up traditionally to operate without the county office building, to operate without the public coming into the building. And so our IT department put a lot of effort into accelerating work that was already underway behind the scenes to allow us to do more work remotely. And one of those is we expanded the community development department's digital submissions. So traditionally, you really had to come down to the lobby and talk to the person at the counter to submit various development application types and also work through payment. And so there was a real very fast focus on how can we expand what we can allow people to submit online and still have the process move forward really smoothly. Another area that IT was really supportive in was a lot of our field staff are collecting data, making observations in the field and then coming back to the county office building to do data entry. And so again, IT was really supportive very quickly at the beginning of the pandemic to allow our inspectors and our field staff to do data input directly on mobile devices in order to eliminate that step of going back and doing data entry and allowing our folks to be a lot more effective out in the field. The third area that I would highlight is public meetings and public participation. So we had never had a virtual meeting in Albemarle County before the pandemic. And we have seen the number of people attending meetings increase dramatically. We have seen the quality of conversations that we're having with folks increase as a result of that. And that's an area where I think you'll see changes in how public meetings are planned and operated moving forward. Exactly what that looks like will depend on a number of items. principally FOIA. So FOIA was not written with a virtual world in mind. And so there's some emergency stipulations that are in effect right now due to the state and local emergency. And it'll be interesting to see what the state does moving forward as we sort of transition into a new normal to allow us to continue to look at that.
Great. These questions are coming in fast and furious. So if this is okay with you all, I'll just continue to read off the ones that are in the chat box unless someone wants to chime in. But we do have a question from Melvin Burris, Chamber Board member. What are your views on the stimulus package that includes funds for state and local government, and the opposition, which wants to eliminate money for state and local government because they claim there has only been a 2% decrease in 2020 revenue?
That's a tough question. We're approaching this as we're not going to get any more stimulus money. That's how we're approaching it. I'm approaching that with my budget, both with capital and with operating. And we were cautious from day one. We were very conservative with our revenue estimates. Last year, we took the worst possible revenue estimate picture that we could, and we built our budget going into this year on that. I balanced the budget this year on the backs of my employees. I stripped everything out, and our service delivery was held intact. And our county employees know that. And I said, you just got to be patient with us because we got to see how this thing's going to end up. And the $19 million in CARES money was greatly appreciated. And our goal was to turn around and push that out into the community to try to make some meaningful impact. I don't expect to get any more money from the federal government. It's really too early to tell, in my opinion, what if there's been structural damage that will be done or that has been done to our local economy here. There's been some articles written on how university communities have been hit by this pandemic and how the jury's out, because there's arguments to be made that true town and gown communities, true university communities, are a little bit recession resistant, resilient. And certainly UVA is a huge economic driver in our community. But I think we need to be really cautious about what our local economy, how's our local economy going to rebound, and what does the structure look like? And it's just too early to tell. But I'm not looking for any more federal money. I don't expect it to come to the local level. We've got a structure in place now to deal with that if it does come, and we'll be responsive if it does.
Okay, great. Local attorney Sherry Lewis asks, she's curious why multifamily and apartment values have declined. You know, is there a surplus of available units, or what are the factors? Generally speaking, COVID has been very good to the multifamily industry because people need a place to quarantine. So curious about the local market. Any thoughts on that?
No, I'm going back to look at my slide. Yeah, apartments on the commercial property changes by type. Apartments were down by, I believe that's 1.3%. Sherry, I don't know. I'll go back to Pete Lynch, our real estate assessor expert, and I'll ask him specifically about apartments. And I'll get your email address from Elizabeth, and either Emily or I will send you something on that to see what Pete's insight is on that. I don't know. I really don't. I think it's a good question.
Great, thank you. Question about the makeup of the board, and is the county concerned that the board is not representative of the community it serves to ensure diversity and mindset when addressing business needs and other issues?
Well, I'll tell you, that's an interesting question, because Emily has been integral with our director of OEI, Siri Russell, and that's the Office of Equity Inclusion. That's an office that has been created and elevated since I've been the county executive, where we're putting a more intentional emphasis externally in our community on how we reach to all the citizens in our community. We're trying to develop an equity lens regarding our capital funding. and the evaluation of our operational services. And so I'm not speaking to the board, and the question was about the board and representation of the board. I'm talking about our work with equity and inclusion, both through the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and then with their help back to Emily and Kate and through all of our operational departments. So the work has been significant. Siri and her team presented their annual report at our last meeting. A lot of collaboration with the city, University of Virginia, an equity MOU. We believe the first of its kind with the university, the city, and the county. And that's in process of being signed, a commitment to equity with our work every day with our community members. As it relates to our board is district represented. They run they all are on a 4-year appointment every 2 years. And the diversity of our board, you can look at that and make your own conclusions as to the diversity of our board. Our board is right now looking at its boards and commissions. We have a number of boards and commissions that are connected to our board, and our board is looking at that with an emphasis on equity and inclusion to try to ask themselves the extension to the boards and commissions that we have that are under our umbrella of responsibility. How extensive are we with our outreach? And so that's some of the work that our board's looking at right now. Good question. And certainly it's a timely question.
Okay, they keep coming in here. Let's see. From Kirby Hutto, our chamber board member, given the job.
Hey, Kirby, good to see you.
Given the job losses in tourism related business and the lagging impact of COVID will have on the CACVB funding, how can we get our tourism industry back where it needs to be? That's a big question too.
Well, Courtney, as the executive director, I think has been a real positive shot in the arm of energy and can do. It's unfortunate that her coming on board was pretty much with the timing of the COVID impact to our community. I mean, Courtney got here, and then about the time she got settled in, here we went with the year-long pandemic. I think she's keeping an eye on that every day, trying to determine, hey, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? How can we begin to elevate the importance of regrowing our important tourism economy here in our community? Courtney, I think, is full of ideas and a lot of energy. I think she's got a great team. She's connected hard to the city's economic development function as well as the county. She's connected hard to Elizabeth. Elizabeth is on the board. So I'm not giving any specific ideas or thoughts, Kirby. Just I know that we've got some work ahead of us and that we need to work collaboratively as a community to try to invest as tourism begins to come back on the scene. With the pandemic numbers have to go down, and then people are going to get more comfortable traveling, and we are a real destination community, and we want to see that. We want to see that vibrancy in our community more than ever.
Okay. I think we have time for just a couple more questions. I'll ask one here from the chat box, and then maybe Grant has a great question, a general question about characteristics of a county executive. Maybe you can finish this out. But the next question is, do you anticipate any changes to the ABRT funding through the fiscal year 22 budget process and/or additional funding opportunities for nonprofits?
Yeah, the outside agency process that's being referred to in that question is that the county is connected hard to a list, a very significant and important list of nonprofit agencies where we fund them through the budget process each year. I've not had a single conversation with our budget office about the ABRT funding process. I've not talked to them at all. I just know that last year, the pandemic hit and we had to strip a lot of money out of our budget, but we held our commitments to our nonprofits. We held that really as a high priority in our organization because we knew that nonprofits were going to be hit hard with the pandemic. I don't think anything's changed. We're going to do everything in our power to continue to fund those agencies. I don't know that there'll be money for increases just because we're still in a very conservative, hold 'em tight kind of budget evaluation process. But I know that it's really important that we continue to support our nonprofits during this really challenging time.
Great. Grant, do you want to maybe, I want to be sensitive to everybody's time here. So we just got a couple of minutes left. I think that's a great question to close on that you put
Yeah,
in.
this is sort of a summary question, Jeff, and thank you so much for being with us today in your comprehensive presentation. My question was, what are the characteristics of a successful county executive? I've looked across the state, and the tenure of a lot of county executives is pretty darn short. So congratulate you on 4 years, and I hope it's a lot in the future. Tell us what makes it successful.
Great question, Grant. I'm in my 4th year, and I try to spend a lot of time focused. Remember the 4 balls?
Yeah.
The elected board, the community, the workforce, the key partner agencies. I want to approach it that way. I think I came here for the right reasons. When I came here almost 4 years ago, I had a combination of county experience, but also my city experience with Asheville as a destination community helped. I think it helps me that I have city and county experience, because Albemarle County has a significant development area. We have 35 square miles that looks like city. And then we've got over 700 square miles that really is rural and looks like a county. And so you have to be able to write with both hands, so to speak. You have to be able to look at urban issues and rural issues. So that's really talking about my experience and how it has helped me here as it relates to the community and being able to connect to the community. My elected board has been clear, consistent, supportive. They are good communicators. They are very supportive of good government. They want us to be responsive to our citizens, and they come at things from different ways, but they listen to each other and they work well with each other. And so that helps me to be able to anticipate what they want and what they're going to expect. And so they have set me up to do my best work and to give my best effort. The workforce is amazing here, Grant. It's the most talented group of people that I've ever worked with. And there's been some turnover. Our leadership team has turned over by 50% in the last 5 years. Most of that is retirement. And every single time that we lose someone, we're going to reload and look for someone who is stronger and better. Same with me. I hope I'm here for a long time, but when I leave, I hope that the organization is set up to go find their next county executive that has skills that I don't have, that where the county can continue to transform and serve the citizens of this community in a way that our citizens expect. And that is to be responsive and to anticipate problems before they become too big. I've got a wonderful group of people that work around me, and that makes my job so rewarding. It's not just Emily. I have 2 great deputy county executives. We have really good department heads. We have a highly devoted team of people in our organization. And I have to keep an eye on that because I don't take it for granted. And so growing and investing in the team that I have around me is a really, really important part of my work. Our key partner agencies, I love the city of Charlottesville. Chip Boyles is a fantastic selection, in my opinion. I think he's going to do great for the city. He did a really good job at TJ PDC. And I worked really well with Teron Richardson. I enjoyed working with both Mike Murphy and also with Maurice. Maurice and I knew each other before I came here, and he really extended a welcoming hand. And behind the scenes, the city staff and the county staff, they collaborate hard every day. And it shouldn't be, it should be that every day. Citizens expect different levels of government to get along and collaborate. They don't want to read stuff in the paper that government cannot collaborate and get along. And I found the city to be highly responsive. They've been great to work with. I'm excited about working with Chip. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I love what I do, and I love this community. I hate that we've gone through such a terribly difficult year, and it hurts my heart to know that we have citizens and community members that are suffering. We're not doing enough. We need to do more. I challenge my people every day to do more, but also I have to do that with an eye on their own stability and making sure that they're going to be okay as well. Thank you for the question. Elizabeth, thank you for the time. I know we're over time. What a wonderful group.
Thank you so much for
Thank
for
you,
your
Jeff.
time and all the great responses to all the great questions. And also thank you to the county for being a big chamber supporter. And your organization came in as a partner in trust into our organization. And I think we have a lot of shared goals and outcomes together. So I just want to say thank you for the county's ongoing support of our efforts as well.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. What a wonderful opportunity. If there were questions in the chat box that I didn't get to, I know I was sort of long with some of my responses. I want to give my email address. It's jrichardson3@albemarle.org. So if you have questions that you didn't get addressed today, I know I owe Sherry a response on the apartments going down by 1.3%. We'll follow up. Thank you for sharing your information. Emily put in the chat box my email address. You can reach out to me directly, and either I will respond or I'll get it to the appropriate person in the organization to respond. I'm sure there were questions that did not go addressed, but also too, maybe you'll have questions after today, and I'll try to follow up promptly, and certainly appreciate your interest.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of you for coming to our meeting today. Great group.
All righty, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.